Yo guys, what is up, and welcome back to another video. Inside today's video, we're going to be doing a first impressions of the brand new Googan Squad Gold Series rod that I have right here. Just posted my unboxing video a couple days ago, so if you haven't seen that, make sure to go check it out. But today we're on the water, and we're going to see if we can test out a few lures and see how this Googan Squad Gold Series go-to rod stands up against some of these baits that I'm going to be throwing. So as you guys can see, half this pond, or even probably more than that, is probably frozen. As you guys can see, just a thin layer of ice. So I just have a small little window to maybe catch some fish. I'm not only going to be reviewing this and seeing how it kind of fishes, but also going to be trying to get on some winter fish. So without further ado, let's get into today's video. Also guys, I'm actually doing my first video with my brand new GoPro Hero 9, so hopefully the video quality looks a bit better than some of my previous fishing videos. I do not have an external mic on this GoPro, which should be fine since the audio seems to be pretty good on this thing, but I'm just hoping that there isn't too much noise picked up with this mic. It should be fine. I have dialed in the settings pretty well, I think, to make the audio pretty decent without an external mic on this GoPro. But without further ado, let's get right into today's video. Alright guys, like I said, I'm going to be testing out a few different lures on this rod just to see how it kind of fishes with different types of lures, since this is the go-to rod. So it should be good, kind of an all-around rod. As you guys can see from these kind of specs on the side, it just has all these things. And it's about 3 out of 4 for all of them. Just your good all-around rod. I'm going to start out with a little Googan Squad Junior Scout right here, since it is such a good winter bait. And it'll be the first bait I test out on sort of that reaction and twitch kind of level for this rod. So let's take our first cast into the water with this rod. Feels pretty good casting. I mean, really time will tell how good it feels casting and how good those eyes kind of hold up while I'm casting and reeling in fish. But you can definitely feel that this has actually a decent amount of sensitivity, even though it is a 7-foot medium heavy fast action. That fast action tip definitely gives it a good amount of sensitivity for fishing something like this jerkbait. At least that's what I'm kind of seeing so far. There's quite a bit of grass in this pond, and kind of ripping through it, you can kind of feel ripping through that grass, which I kind of like. With an all-around rod, you're going to want a lot of kind of sensitivity in the tip for when you're fishing slow moving baits. They're kind of hopping off the bottom, as well as kind of twitch baits like this jerk bait. You can kind of feel in that rod tip what you're going through, what you're hitting against. And obviously with this go-to rod, it should be pretty much just as good with that sensitivity as it is with power, which we'll kind of test a little bit later in this video with some other baits. Let's take a few more casts with this jerk bait. It is such a good wintertime bait, so we might even get a fish on it. This pond, like I said, is half frozen, so I'm not expecting these fish to be super hungry, but I'm hoping that maybe we can at least get one fish, one little guy, to kind of see how this rod holds up. So let's take a few more casts with this jerkbait, and I'll kind of do my opinion of it after I take a few casts and maybe even switch up some baits. So let's take a few more casts with this and see if we can't get on the fish with it. Alright guys, so I took a few more casts with that jerk bait. Definitely the rod felt good. Like I said, the sensitivity kind of going through that grass was what you kind of expect from a medium heavy fast action rod like this go-to rod from Googan Squad. But now I switched up to something super finessey. That is just a really tiny wacky rig with a little drag and drop on it. Not something you're normally going to be throwing on a bait caster, But I figured I'd try something out, and also this might be one of the baits that I might be able to get on a fish today, in a small pond like this. And as you can see from the side of this rod, I'm not sure how well you guys can see that, but the finesse is actually only 2 out of 4, because once again, baitcaster rods you're not going to be using to fish drop shots and small wacky rigs like this. But we're going to see how it kind of handles up to something super light like this, and see how the sensitivity is with something super light. Something I'm basically just going to be casting out and letting sit on the bottom. When you're fishing in the winter, you're either gonna, my favorite baits are either the jerk bait, which I just took off, something I can twitch and then kind of pause in between, and a lot of times in that pause those fish will just come up to it. They see the erratic action. Once it pauses, they come up to it and eat it. And the other way I like fishing in the winter is just super slowly with either like a Ned rig, wacky rig, small wacky rig like this, as well as a drop shot, something like that. Just casting out there and really just letting it sit for a while, just letting it sit on the bottom, something that'll kind of shine through the water. That's why I'm using this natural color that has kind of pearl on one side of the bait, something that these fish can easily see, and then just kind of slowly jigging it up. And again, even though this rod is a bait caster rod, it's going to be a little bit heavier than something you might throw this on, like a spinning rod, light action spinning rod. You could still definitely feel it kind of popping up through that grass. You're not going to get all the sensitivity as you would like with a light action spinning rod, but I mean, for an all-around rod, it definitely feels pretty good. You can definitely feel that action from this bait. Let's take a few more casts with this. See if we maybe can't find a hungry fish. Alright guys, I think I'm going to take 1 or 2 more casts with this light wacky rig, and then switch up to the last bait, some kind of weighted bottom bait like a jig, or maybe a Texas rig or something like that, so I can test kind of a fast moving reaction bait like that jerk bait, a great winter bait, as well as this wacky rig, something light, super finesse, and then as well as something heavier on the bottom, just jigging off through this grass. Alright guys, so we got the third and final bait that we're going to tie on. Just a little jig right there. A 5/16 ounce juicy jig with a bandito bug on the back. But I just wanted to try something a little bit heavier, something on the bottom that I could fish with this rod. Just see how it performs, because over the 2 other baits that I tried, the jerk bait was pretty much perfect, what I want for a jerk bait. Maybe the tip could be a little bit flimsier for jerking that jerk bait, but for an all-around rod, it really performed fine. Obviously for that finesse bait, it didn't perform as well, just because it's a finesse bait and you're not really supposed to be throwing something that light on a bait caster. But really for what it is, it actually worked pretty well, and I could throw a bait like that wacky rig on this and still have some good luck with it and have the sensitivity that I would want. But now we're going to be throwing this bottom bait. You can definitely feel all that grass going up into the bait, which I really like. I really like more sensitive rods that you can kind of feel, especially when you're fishing ponds or lakes that you haven't fished before. You really want to see what the bottom is, where you're casting, so you can get a better idea of where these fish might be hiding. Which is what I really like about this rod. It definitely has some good sensitivity with that fast action tip. We're gonna take a few more casts with this. It's not really having any trouble kind of handling a heavier bait like this. It's almost a 1/2 ounce jig, I think. So it's not super heavy, but definitely a lot heavier than that super light wacky rig. With a medium setup like this, you might have a little bit harder time throwing something like a big swim bait. That's like an ounce swim bait. But I mean, when you're throwing something like that, you're definitely going to need a bit of a bigger setup. And pulling through this grass, you can definitely feel how powerful this rod is for just being a medium rod, because I'm getting a bunch of grass on this jig. You can definitely feel that if I were to be setting the hook, you could definitely lay into that. Let's take a few more casts with this jig, see how it feels. Just kind of running this heavier bait through the grass. Alright guys, it actually ended up getting dark right after I made this clip, so I wasn't able to do a kind of final thoughts on the rod and an outro, so I'm going to do that right here. So basically, I definitely think this rod is a super good kind of go-to rod like it's supposed to be. Obviously, time will tell on how well it's going to hold up after a bunch of fish catches and kind of putting it through wear and tear as the fishing season goes on. But overall, I definitely really like the sensitivity in the tip, which is something I really look for in a rod, and I definitely like that. And the power kind of ripping through that grass with the jerkbait and kind of going through it with the jig, I definitely like that as well. So definitely an overall great rod that I think you should definitely think about purchasing if you are in the market to get a new rod. But overall, that's going to be about it for today's video. I really hope you guys did enjoy this video. If you did, make sure you hit it with a like and subscribe down below. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.